Good evening. Welcome to Three Beards and the Boss. I'm super excited tonight, but before I do that, always we have the boss right next to me. We have this gentleman right below me. This is Troy, and of course we have Bobby. Now, Bobby, you finally have some competition for a beard. I'm going to tell you right now.
Yeah,
I know, man.
That beard is amazing. Troy, welcome to the show.
What's
Thank you.
up,
Thank you for
Troy?
having me.
Yeah, we are. I'm telling you, we are excited about having you. I know I've been trying to get you on the show for a while, and we've had some scheduling issues,
Yep.
mainly because you've been out there kicking ass. So we'll take that. But just to do a quick introduction, Troy is on what we call terminal leave from the Navy. That means he gets to sort all of his crap out. He gets to get paid while he grows this wonderful beard of his, and then he'll get his retirement papers and he'll get his nice check. So let's start out with, and I didn't ask you this before, but I recall a commercial.
Damn
And now I'm going to tell you that I remember this commercial like it was yesterday. I
Uh-huh.
remember watching that commercial, but I'm just going to say there's a commercial out there. We won't get too much into it.
Now I
But
want to
let's
see
start out
it.
with your Navy career. Tell us a little bit about that, some of the stuff that you've done, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Um, First off, thank you for having me on your guys' show. I'm very grateful to get a platform to talk about what we do, not so much about myself, but about what our nonprofit does. But about my military service, I got to back way up. So, you know how in your high school yearbook, your senior picture, it'll put next, what Troy is going to be doing this after high
Mhm.
school. And right next to it says joining the Navy. Unfortunately, 18-year-old Troy was a chunky monkey. And when he went to MEPS, they said, nope. And I wasn't able to join the Navy. You have to realize I was born in San Diego, California. Every male Ulshoeffer has been a squid. I grew up on 32nd Street. I ended up graduating high school in Iowa. My mom married a sailor, don't ask. Like, he retired and he's from the Midwest, and we ended up out there. Um, so I ended up going to a place called Job Corps after high school, after doing some pretty shady things with my life that led me to the point where, like, I got to get my crap together. And so I ended up at a place called Job Corps. And if your listeners aren't familiar or you're not, it's kind of like it's a trade school
Mhm.
that you can go to that is funded by the state. And so I went there in 1998. I graduated high school in 96, ended up at Job Corps in 98, and I met my current wife, Tiffany. We've been together 25 years. But right after we met, child number one was soon coming after that. And for as much as there is baby weight that women may carry, I quadrupled it
Oh
and
wow!
ended up in the year 2000, I weighed 340.
Oh wow.
Um, Yeah, large and in charge, my friend. I'm talking hefty, hefty. I was hefty. My junior Seau jersey was a 5XL,
Oh
and
shit.
for I think everyone on here can kind of remember in 2001 when you were of recruitment age, the patriotic wave our country was riding after September 11th.
Mhm.
It was unlike anything I'd ever known since or before,
Right.
and I was a repo man at a rent-to-own store in Burlington, Iowa. And I thought to myself, man, I'd do anything to be able to serve my country. I want to so bad. It was already in my blood, my DNA from family. And then uh, the day that W declared war in Iraq, I'll never forget. It was March 16th, 2003. Um, I started a diet, and by August 20th, or excuse me, August 19th of the same year of 2003, I weighed 186 pounds and I enlisted. Now, did I lose
Wow.
all that weight that quick in a healthy manner? Meh. Uh, if you That was the peak of the high protein, low carb, body for life South Beach diet.
Oh yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Mm.
and so you TJ brought up something, and we can talk about it, right? Because there was a product called Stacker 2 that was on the market,
Oh,
and
I know
Hmm.
that.
it had an ingredient called ephedra. You can't
Oh,
get that anymore. I mean, not
Yeah,
without
it
a
was
Yeah.
so
prescription.
great. It was so great.
And and so when I lost all the weight, when I enlisted, my wife made me send a before and after picture to all the products I use: Tyson chicken,
oh
Optimum
yeah.
Nutrition protein powder, and Stacker 2. And lo and behold, Stacker 2 contacted me, and I ended up doing a 10-year endorsement deal and filmed like 6 commercials with them about my
Oh
weight
yeah.
loss.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I digress. I enlisted in the Navy Reserves, right? So I didn't enlist active duty. I came in as an SK, which is a rate that no longer exists. It means storekeeper. It's the supply guy for the Navy. However, I did take the initiative um, to learn Pashto, and I was pretty good at it. And so I got mobilized 3 times, 3 IAs, individual augmentees: 0405, 0506, 0708, Kuwait, Iraq, Afghanistan. And in that last tour uh, in Afghanistan, my wife said to me, "Why don't you just stay active? They keep taking you away. Why don't you just stay
Hmm.
active duty?" And I said, "Okay." I put a package in, it got approved, and I got orders to Mesron 9, so Brownwater Navy small boat unit out of Everett, Washington. And they were expecting an SK, an active duty SK, to show up, a guy who I was an E5 at that point and never worked a day in my life as an SK. I was a civil affairs um, individual. I got mobilized not to do supply, but to do civil affairs in the Middle East. And so I didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground. I'm like, what the hell is an NSN? I don't know how to order you blankets. What's a pencil? All that. Like, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And so my CMC set me down. And he's like, look, if you're going to be active duty Navy, what's a job you want to do full time? And because of my corpsman has been in my family. My grandfather was a 30-year FMF corpsman. I learned a bunch of medical already from doing all the IAs, and I put in a package to cross rate to corpsman in 2009, and I did, and then became a greenside corpsman immediately, which just means I got stationed with Marines, and now we're here. I made Chief Petty Officer in 2018, and now we're looking towards retirement, as you can see
Yeah.
by my beard.
Awesome. That is awesome.
Congrats.
Now, if you folks, if people don't know what a greenside corpsman is, it's basically, well, not basically, it's someone that works with the Marine Corps, because the Marine Corps does not have their own medical or dental. So it's not like he just hung out and you know was like, oh, I'm a corpsman. I remember when I was in boot camp, Troy. Um, we had a guy that was a greenside corpsman, and he was at the hospital that we were, getting our shots at and everything. And someone told me what he did. And I thought he was like the baddest dude in the world. He had like just a couple ribbons on, but he had that ribbon that they give for. I don't know if they still do it, but they give a ribbon to sailors that go with Marine Corps, and he had one of those ribbons on. And I thought,
Yeah.
man, this
So back in
dude
the
is
day,
shit.
it's the FM. It was the FMF ribbon, but now it's a warfare pin that we wear.
Right,
I know
right.
what you're talking about.
Yeah. So um, you have to go through. You had to go through some of Marine Corps boot camp.
So we have to go to what's called FMTB. So there's an FMTB school. Essentially, it's hold on. I think it's 9 weeks. Um, so there's one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. I went to the East Coast at Camp Lejeune.
Okay.
And what it is a crash course. It's led by Marine Corps instructors. So you have Marine Corps instructors, and then you have one Navy corpsman instructor. The Marine Corps instructors teach you everything there is to know about the Marine Corps: history, tradition, policies, vernacular, rank structure, things of that nature. And then the corpsman comes in to teach you field medicine. Um, it's not boot camp, but the first 2 weeks they sure did treat you like that. And
Right.
mind you, I went to it like as a fleet, they call them fleet returnees. So I didn't go to boot camp, A school, then to field med. I had been in a hot minute, at
Yeah.
3 deployments, and
Yeah.
I had these little Marines that their rank was much less than mine, and they did not care. They ate my soul.
Mm.
It
Oh,
was
yeah.
it was great.
So, of all your deployments, and I know you spent a lot of time in the sand like I have, did you go to any places? Because I will back up a little bit. When I was in the Navy, I got to go to a lot of fun places, exotic places. And then 2010, I went into the Army National Guard, and they sent me to the sand. And that's all I've seen since I've been in the Guard. So, did you get to go on 6 month cruise with the Marine Corps or any of that kind of fun stuff?
So I have been in the Navy for over 20 years, and if you believe it or not, I've never stepped foot on a ship in my life.
Oh,
Not
Wow.
one single time. So and it's not. It is unique, but you can find other people that have had careers like that. They call us sand squids. So
right.
you can kind of get the term out of that. The only thing water related was when I was with the Mesron, which is just the small boat. It's like Swick, but it's not
Right.
Swick. I want to make
I
sure
got you.
I don't want people to jump down my throat. You
Oh,
think
I
you're
got you.
I'm not special ops. So, um, but no, they was just small craft.
Yeah, I I spent a little bit of time on the ship, and I loved it because I got to go to places like Australia and places like that. So when they were kids or teenagers, um, I would write and say, "Oh yeah, I'm in Australia," and of course, Becky was like, "Oh, that sounds cool." My brothers were like, "Oh, that's where all the girls are." Yeah, we okay. Tell us all about it.
Like, ooh, the animals. Do you get to see
Yeah,
kangaroos?
did you see a kangaroo? And
He's
my
like,
brothers were like,
yeah,
"Did you see a blonde?" Yes, I saw the wild, enticing blonde.
Yeah,
But
I never got to go to any place like Australia. I was in South Korea for a bit, Germany, and then when I was, so the tour in Afghanistan was 15 months.
okay,
It was really long, really long. So they gave us
yeah.
R&R in Qatar, whatever
yep,
your preference is. And so I did get to go there and hang out and see the sights and sounds and smells of that
and
place.
drink.
But that was really it.
Yeah. Did okay. So with being a corpsman and spending a little bit, or did you spend time at working at the hospitals, those type of things? Was it mainly on the Marine Corps bases, or was it in the Navy bases? How did that work for you?
So when I changed over to corpsman in 2009, and my first duty station was here. I say here, but Pensacola, Florida, which is close to where I'm at currently. And I was there for 6 years, 3 of them on Softley Field, and then the other 3 at Naval Hospital, Pensacola, which is the only blue side corpsman billet I ever filled. The rest of
Okay.
the time was all green side with artillery battery and LAR unit. Yeah.
So, being a greenside duck, you were pretty much worshipped from the Marine Corps
It's true.
because
All the
you were the
rumors are
guy.
true.
You were the guy that was giving them medication for a stomach ache and for what they might have gotten that Saturday night um,
Yep.
some real
Oh.
cute young lady. So
You had to punch the boar. Yep.
yeah,
Punch
yeah.
the boar and change your socks.
I love the relationship between a corpsman and we have it similar in the military or in the army, but I love the relationship that a corpsman has with his Marines.
It's unlike
Um,
anything else in the military, in my opinion. Um, and I have been the chief over junior sailors or a LPO over junior sailors for many years. And this is what I'm about to say is not to slight them in the least, but working with Marines it's just a completely different world. If I say to Corporal Schmuckatelli, I need you to go paint that bridge, I will never hear why or a sigh, and they're just going to be raw chief. That's the only words they're going to say, and they're going to love me for it.
right.
That's not the case in with other subordinates within the
Oh
military.
no.
Mhm.
It's really incredible. To this day, Marines that I served with a decade ago still call me up. They're still very active in what I do outside of the military currently, which I know we'll touch on. I just love it. I love the relationship.
That's
Well,
awesome.
I tell you, I've been watching you for probably over a year, um, and I've just been amazed. I've watched you when you made your videos about being a chief, and then I've kind of watched this transition that you've been going through. And I know it's probably you have a little bit of a mixed bag on it. It's been exciting, it's scary at the same time. But I've kind of
Oh, it's
watched you.
terrifying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've watched you go through this journey, and I just want to make sure you understand from all of us that we appreciate everything you've done, and I think what we're about to talk about, we're really that's what I'm super excited about talking about, and that is what you have been doing for a couple years now. So tell us a little. Well, tell us a lot about it. I don't want to hear a little. I want to hear a lot, and I know my brother has lots of questions for you about what
Yep.
you're doing right now.
Okay. I think to give it context, just like the military thing, I'm going to start from the beginning. I've told this story a million times, so I need to tell you guys two things before I start. One, uh, I'm going to get emotional. It's going to happen, and just I'll work through it. I promise. And two, if I'm rambling, like put your hand up and say, "Shut the hell up, Troy. I have a question or
Never,
something." All right.
never.
All right. So what you're referencing, just to give some context, is the fact that my wife and I have a 501c3. It's called Change Unchained, and the 30,000-foot view of that nonprofit is I am currently sitting in the bedroom of my tiny house. I live in a 250 square foot tiny house. My wife and I are minimalists. Um, we found this lifestyle to be very freeing, very stress free, and we thought that it would be a good tool to implement for survivors of exploitation and trafficking. So we have a 21-acre ranch down on the Gulf Coast, and we cleared it 2 years ago. We took this raw piece of land and have converted it into this beautiful place of respite and restoration. We have a tiny house village with multiple tiny homes, and we're currently at capacity. My wife is out with the ladies right, well, coming back from having a beach day with the survivors that are staying out here, and we'll get into what all that is. So, how we got here. Um, 2011, I'm stationed in Pensacola for the first time, and my wife and I started working with an advocacy group for human trafficking. And I think it's important to human trafficking, like it just rolls off the tongue these days in 2023. Like you hear it all the time. 2011, no one knew what that was. Like
Right.
very few people had ever heard the term human trafficking, including me. The only time I ever heard about it was when I did my general military trainings each year, where we had to do a training called TIP, Trafficking in Persons. And essentially, if I'm going to give away the secrets to every sailor, airman, marine, soldier on the planet, we just click through them bad boys and get that certificate and keep it rolling. So I didn't have a lot of knowledge. So when we got involved with this group, very superficial stuff, trainings and advocacy and awareness. It caught my eye. I was like, is this really happening like in Pensacola, Florida? I mean,
Mhm.
I thought this was like Guatemala or Indonesia or the Philippines.
Right.
And so uh, got involved doing that for several years. Ended up getting orders to PCS to Aurora, Colorado, where I was the medical chief for an artillery battery stationed out of Buckley Air Force Base. And we started working with another group, doing more stuff, more trainings. Got asked to do, instead of doing GMTs for the Marines, where they click through, the commander and my first sergeant asked me to give in person trainings because I just had consumed so much knowledge about this topic. At this time, I hadn't done anything um, more than trainings and awareness, right? So we're about a good 5, 6, 7 years of doing that. Uh, and then I got involved with another organization, a very large anti-human trafficking organization who is based out of Utah. I'm sure people can put two and two together. And in 2019, December 2019, both of my sons, I have two sons, They had graduated high school, and oh, sorry, it's my dog. And they stayed back in Colorado when we PCS'd to Utah. And we got there. Now I was close to the headquarters of this organization, part of their operations team, the whole nine, right? And I don't think I have to remind people what March 2020 was like. We moved December 2019, kids stay in Colorado. We moved to Utah, and March 2020 hits, okay? All right, so bear with me when I get through this part. I promise it has a happy ending, but it kind of gets dark for a minute. Um, the first week of the lockdown, so week 2 of March, um, my youngest son calls us, and he is driving 75 miles per hour into oncoming traffic in downtown Denver. He was going to take his life. And he was calling to say goodbye. We talked him off the edge. He's safe. And we were like, what the hell is going on? Like, where did this come from? Because it literally did come out of nowhere. And we learned that when I was stationed in Pensacola prior, he had been getting exploited um, as a young man. And mind you, the emotions that washed over me, there was a million of them. One, a failure as a father. Uh, I mean, my job, number one job is to protect. I am to protect my kids, and I failed. Uh, Two, I'm the human trafficking guy. Like, I'm the human trafficking guy. How did this happen in my house? And there's a question that I typically ask, and we'll kind of skirt past it this time. I typically ask people, when I say the term human trafficking, what do people think of? And a lot of times people will regurgitate like a scene that could be used from the movie Taken. It's a dark, damp basement and cages. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen. It does. I've witnessed it, and we'll get into how I've seen stuff like that. Um, but typically, it's happening right down the street where little Susie is living. Still goes to school, still goes to Sunday school on Sundays, but maybe her uncle is using her to pay off a drug debt. That's just one example, a real example that we've seen. Um, and so all of this happened under my roof during a time where I was being brought up to speak to hundreds of people on how to recognize signs of human trafficking, how to keep your kids safe from exploitation. So my wife packs the car up and goes and picks my son up in Colorado, still March of 2020. Nobody's moving. Like, she was able to get to Colorado with like seeing 3 cars on the road. I mean, everybody remembers, right? Everyone's scared
Oh
to
yeah.
death.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And she picks them up, and they come back to Pensacola. And the reason why is because Pensacola had become home. There was a support system. There was resources here for him to utilize to get better. We needed him. Whatever you need, son, like, let's get it. And what he needed was here in Pensacola. And so they came here because they couldn't come to Utah. My wife and I had bought our first tiny house. We were living in a 200 square foot tiny home. So they came here, and I continued working, learning what the word Zoom meant, and doing all my stuff on Zoom in Utah with my light armored reconnaissance Marine Corps unit that I had just been with. I'd only been there 3 months at this point. And God bless this guy, my first sergeant, just a tremendous man who uh, didn't see the forest for the trees when it came to me. I was the only medical guy at the unit. If I wasn't there, that unit's readiness is going to plummet. However, he said, you know what? Because of your situation, why don't you apply for what's called HUMS orders? If you're not familiar with what HUMS orders is, it's an acronym for humanitarian orders. And how that works is if a sailor has an egregious emergency that requires that person's physical presence to be elsewhere in order for something to get rectified, They will end your current set of orders and pay for you to move to that area.
Wow.
So I applied for that at the end of March. Nobody was PCSing. The military was shut down too. Nobody was moving.
Yeah.
And that was going to be, that's what I was told. Like, this may not go through. Um, we might have to wait for, 2 weeks to slow the curve. Whatever. That never showed up. But the planets aligned and Big Navy said, you know what? Like, we verified what's going on. Yeah, we're going to move you to Pensacola. And they cut me a set of orders for 1 year. And I got to come back to Pensacola in June of 2020. And I got stationed at NAS Pensacola, but it was just for mustering purposes. When you're on HUMS orders, you are just, the Navy needs to account for you, but your focus should be on whatever your family emergency is. So for one whole year, every counseling, every therapy, everything, I got to be there with him, which was incredible, and which helped my wife and I too. Like, we had to go through our own therapy and counseling,
Of
and
course.
like, it was 2020. It was bad in and of itself, but it was like soul crushing for the Ulshoeffer family. And the thing was, when we were stationed in Pensacola prior, I had ran an outdoor fitness boot camp it was really popular. It was called Fixed on Fitness. And I thought to myself, you know what? I need to do something more than just the advocacy and the training and the awareness. I'm going to start this boot camp back up again. People wanted to get out of the house, for God's sake. It was an outdoor
Yeah.
Yeah.
fitness
Yeah.
boot camp. And the timing was just right. And instead of me charging people, what I would do is, at the end of the week after Friday's class, I would invite a nonprofit that worked in the world of exploitation, trafficking, child internet safety, something to that effect. And they had to stay there and listen to the leader of this organization talk to them for 10 minutes. That was it. That was the price of
Wow.
me training you all week. Um, One of those organizations was Called to Rescue, or is Called to Rescue. It's led by a retired Master Chief. His name is Brad Dennis. And I implore people to look him up. In my opinion, and I feel like it's an educated one, he is the single most subject matter expert in the world of search and rescue, whether it be remains or uh, victims of exploitation, trafficking, kidnapping, runaways. He has been doing this for a very, very long time. And if people don't know about the Chiefs mess, like, worldwide, no matter what, good, bad, or indifferent, there's a connection, between Master Chiefs, Senior Chiefs, and Chiefs. And we kind of knew each other from before, when I was here earlier, kind of doing the advocacy work in 2011, 2012. But we were just acquaintances. And I invited him to come speak. And when he did, uh, him and I just got to talking, and he's like, "Would you like to get involved with our organization and do what we do, which is the search and rescue aspect?" So in my head, you know, if you don't know what search and rescue in the United States looks like for trafficked kids, you're thinking of like super high speed tactical vests kicking it. It's not. It's not. It's not. It's not. And I always kind of I hover over this point in my story, especially now with years of experience. If this is a topic that touches your heart and you want to support organizations that work in the world that I'm talking about, please vet the organizations. It's unfortunate, but there are people and organizations out there that kind of clout chase off of this topic and
Right.
make it about them. If you see them with a promotional video of them in tactical vests, like running around with ARs and saving kids in the United States, that it's not happening. That
Right.
does not happen, nor does it bring justice for the survivors. And I know there's people listening right now that are going, no, 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 you just get them. That's the right way. No one understands righteous anger as much as I do. So
Right.
please hear me when I say this. I get it. I get it. You can wear your little pedophile hunter hat and do all that cool high-speed stuff on your TikTok, but it does not bring real justice for the survivors. And what good are you when you're in prison? Because you're absolutely working outside the boundaries of your
Yeah,
right and left
Right.
laterals.
exactly.
All right, I'll get off my soapbox now. Uh, so, so I ended up getting involved. My wife ended up getting involved. Um, and we have been doing search and rescue with Call to Rescue and Free International, which is another organization, for 3 years now. And people can look up these organizations. They can also see the events that we do across the country. They're called the Big Search. And we just got done with our largest event every year for the 15th year now. The week before the Super Bowl, Call to Rescue and Free International descends on Las Vegas, working in tandem with their law enforcement, their task force, with Aries, with Nevada Child Seekers, with DFS, and we go and locate missing, trafficked, and exploited children. And I just got home last Monday. Uh, this particular year, we located and safely got. I'm not going to say they got home. Not all kids go home, because home is where they were running from for legitimate
Right.
reasons. Um, but we safely located 14 kids in Vegas.
Wow.
And so
That's awesome.
I know that was like a real shotgunned thing from 2011 to current. But to kind of put a bow on this and let you guys ask questions, the ranch. So we started doing the search and rescue in 2020, and that gave us a real peek behind the curtain from. I try real hard not to use the word rescue. There's a finality to that word, and you'll come to learn that that's just the beginning. That is simply the very tippy top and beginning of someone's healing and restoration. There's a long, long journey that happens after this quote unquote rescue. So, doing the search and find, if you will, uh, we kind of saw the links in the chain of watching someone get found and then having a successful reacclimation back into society. So you got respite care, you got state certified safe houses, you got counseling, therapy, rehab. But the one link in the chain that we saw nobody was really kind of focusing on was how these people would get through that pipeline, but still not have a skill, be financially stable, uh, have employment, none of that stuff. All these different vulnerabilities that could lead them. Vulnerabilities is the key to being exploited. And so
Right.
what we decided to do was we had a home that we had bought in 2012 in Pensacola, our dream home, 3,500 square feet on the beach, and we had rented it out when we PCS'd. We decided to sell it in March of 2021. We took all that money and we bought 21 acres of land down here in the Gulf Coast, about an hour outside of Pensacola. Very secluded, very, very, very. There ain't no one around here, y'all. Um,
Wow.
and we cleared the land, and we have built a tiny house village. We have multiple tiny homes that survivors are staying in currently, and have been for. We've been having people here for over a year now. Um, and when someone is done with the state certified safe house program and still kind of need that buffer zone to get those things squared away before kind of relaunching back out, they come and stay with us. They don't pay for anything. We pay for food. They get all new clothing. I'm teaching people how to drive. I mean, grown adults that never had anybody to teach them these basic life skills. My wife wakes up in the morning, does yoga and meditation on a cool little deck out in the middle of nature where they're surrounded by blue jays and cardinals. It's
No.
absolutely beautiful. And my wife is like Fiona from Shrek. Like
Oh,
the animals will like gather around her, and she'll like talk to them.
I love it.
It's yeah, and we have a greenhouse. We have um, all kinds of cool little things out here for the survivors to kind of get centered, get healed, continue their aftercare services. We provide all the transportation. Um, yeah, I'll stop there.
Bobby, you had some questions. I know I have.
Well, I do, but before I even get into the questions, I just because I'm a visual guy, I want to show this here. So here's your. I'm assuming this is probably not up to date, right? Because
No, that's a little
what?
over a year old.
So that's a year old. So this
The
is
beginning.
on your homepage, but of your Change Unchained website. But I
Yes, sir.
just wanted people to see kind of what you're talking about. That's seclusion right there. There's not much around you. Um,
No, no.
I'd be real excited to see what it looks like now. Um,
Yeah, so if
but
people want
how
to see
cool
what
is
it looks
that?
like, we're
Hmm.
pretty active on social media,
Okay.
just because we are such a small 501c3. Like obviously, we're based solely on fundraising, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So we try to stay active on social media. There are full tours of the ranch. Obviously, the safety, protection, and privacy of the folks that stay out here is always key. And I want to
Right.
make sure people understand that if people ever catch me on TikTok live, and it's on the ranch, I'm gonna be the only one here.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
the
Hmm.
my wife and our guests are gone for the day.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that looks all different now, bro. So that tiny house on wheels that's on the left, that's called the Gabby House,
Okay.
and then right to the right of that is there's already a plot and infrastructure for another build right there.
Okay.
That little longer structure is the pump house and storage,
Okay.
and then the house next to that is called the Bailey House. That is completely that's like before we even had it uh, fully constructed and open, but that's
Mm.
had residents now for about a year. And then
Okay.
right to the right of that is the infrastructure already put in for a fourth house, which is under construction currently.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
this picture here is probably not much more than what, maybe 5 acres, 4 acres of your large lot, or is that
Oh,
the
not
whole?
yeah, yeah.
That's a
If
small
that,
part of it.
I would go
Yeah.
more with two or three.
Oh
Okay.
wow.
Yeah. So
Yeah, our
that gives you
ranch is
kind of an
huge.
idea. So I've got lots of questions, and I really don't
Sure.
think we'll probably have time for all of them. But so obviously we know why you got into it, but so now that you're kind of into it, what are the kind of the signs and you always hear about you know or I guess you had mentioned it could be Susie down the street.
Yep.
What are these signs? What are you looking for? What are kind of the telltale signs that you're like, okay, this should probably be investigated, or are you? I guess how are you reaching out to these people to actually rescue? Quote unquote.
That's a great. Can I start there? Because that's
Yes.
important.
Yeah.
Um, so like I had said prior, I'm always going to harp on the fact we work in tandem with law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
We are not a
Yeah.
vigilante group.
Right.
That doesn't work.
Right.
We have a rapport with law enforcement, especially here locally. In any city that we go and do a big search. Now, this search and rescue organization has been around long before Troy Ulshoeffer got involved. There has been years, if not decades, of relationship building. Any case that we take on, 95% of them come from Escambia County Sheriff's Office, their missing
Mm-hmm.
persons department, things of that nature, to where there's two missing person detectives in this whole area,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
Right.
So they allow us, we do all the OSINT gathering, we do the surveillance, we do the report writing, we'll do the intake, where that's what my wife does. So my wife's portion in this, in the search and rescue aspect, is she is a case manager and an intel analyst. So the moment that Deputy so and so says, okay, we need help locating this runaway or this missing child, um, my wife will immediately go and sit with the parents and do the full intake, and we'll move on from there. So I want to make sure I harp on that. It's not like we're just like, hey, we're going to go find some
Yeah.
missing kids
Right.
today.
Right. Yeah.
No, it's absolutely a partnership with law enforcement, and we would not and could not do what we do without their blessing. To
Right.
go to your original question about signs, um, I'll start with this, and this is not answering your question, but I'll get there, I promise. If there's any parents listening out there, please take it from me. If you have listened to what I've said so far tonight, so know that this is coming from a place of love. You are not your child's friend. I need you to hear this. I need you to pound it into the middle of your forehead. You are not your parent. You are not your kid's friend. You're not your kid's friend. You're not. And the reason I say this is we see time and time and time again that all of this starts on a child's phone or a tablet because it's left unmonitored and unchecked. And the internet's a scary place and it
Yeah.
has scary people. And if
Yes.
you are allowing your children to have unfettered access to the internet and they're in your charge, me personally, like the law may not say so, and this may come across harsh, but it's harsh at me because I am the ramifications of this as a father. It's borderline neglect.
Yeah.
And you need to be very, very careful. So let's say, to get to your question now, Bobby, I know I've danced around that thing for about 10
No,
minutes
that's all
now. I
right. That's all
apologize.
right.
I like to talk, bro. So,
You say good
um,
things, so we appreciate it.
um, let's say there's you think that your child is being exploited online. Oh, bear with me 1 second. I am so sorry.
No, you're fine.
Is that a little baby? Is that a little puppy?
Yeah, that's my little tink. Mom must be. Yeah, mom just pulled
Mom's
up, so
home.
they're back from the beach. Um, so if you see your child going out of their way to kind of hide what it is they're doing when they're online, when they have their phone and they're at home, they make sure to go to their room and shut their door. They get very fidgety when you grab their stuff and you're like, hey, what's the passcode? Also,
Yeah.
please know the passcode.
Yeah.
Right?
Don't let
Oh,
them
yeah.
have their own
That's a must.
passcode.
Right.
That those are signs that something is amiss. Then, if you feel that something is amiss, typically the pipeline that occurs is that somebody will reach out on, let's just use Facebook Messenger,
Mhm.
and you know things are going awry when they try to get you off the app. So, and move you over into Telegram, Signal, WhatsApp, these
Yeah.
encrypted
Mhm.
sites where certain things can go down, and there's another shield of privacy, if
Mhm.
you will, because what'll happen is they're gonna love bomb them, right? They're gonna let them in.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, that's the vulnerability that so many kids have. Kids just want to be loved,
Mhm.
and if somebody is showing them that, they're willing to do things that are a little risky from time to time, like sending a risque photo.
Right?
Now, if they send one, that individual
Something
has
all
them.
over.
He has them, and
Right.
there's a term for it. I mean, they've coined it. It's in Webster's dictionary. It's sexploitation,
Yep.
where you can get these kids are getting blackmailed, like, hey, I need you to give me 10 more pics, or I'm going to
Mhm.
send this one you gave me to all of your family members, all of your friends, so on and so forth. So that's just a couple of things as far as online. In person, a lot of, so eye contact is big. Let's just say you're walking through Walmart, right? Uh, you see a child with a grown adult. One, they're walking slightly behind them. Head is constantly down in a very submissive manner. Again, this is not 100% thing, obviously, obviously. Um,
Right.
but that's not normal behavior for children, especially in public places. That's not a social norm. Typically, kids are they're wanting to touch the bread and
Right.
grab
Right.
a Pokemon.
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
Yeah.
old. I don't know if Pokemon's
Mhm.
still a thing.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
still
Um,
it
a
is.
big thing.
It is.
Big
Yeah.
thing.
okay,
Yeah.
fair
You're
enough.
good. You're good. I ain't gonna.
So that's just a couple of things.
Yeah, we're talking about kids here, but what you're finding is it's not just children. I mean, a lot of times you hear human trafficking, you think kids, you think young children, but that's
Yeah.
not what you're rescuing out there all the time, is it? You're
That-
finding adults.
That's correct. And I'm glad you said that, Bobby. Thank you. Because when it comes to the ranch, we don't, children do not come to the ranch. I mean, it's not that we wouldn't do that, but there's a lot of red tape there, and rightly so. There's other resources for children that are going through that whole recovery pipeline. We house adults. And yes, not all the cases that we get are just missing kids. It's make sure I'm careful how I say this. So I'm 45, right? We have guests out at the ranch right now that are older than me.
Right.
So yeah, it's not just something that happens to the young. It just, when people hear the story of young, it tugs at a different heartstring.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Now, having a little bit of experience in my line of work, I know that a lot of this human trafficking starts because of drug habits, and they keep them hooked on drugs to keep them doing what they're doing. So, of
That's right.
course, that makes it very difficult for you to get these folks to say, "Hey, you've done your intel, you've done your everything that needs to be done. You hand it over to the police." And sometimes you probably have some people that don't want to go and get that help. Correct?
Oh, that's probably more common than people think. That's
Right.
absolutely correct. Number one, they don't see, not very many survivors originally are looking at their, what somebody would be charged as a trafficker, as the
No.
trafficker. It's
Right.
their boyfriend.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they're still in the phase of, he loves me. He's only doing this because he loves me. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Many of them are angry at us.
Yes.
It happens all the time. Happened in Vegas.
Yeah. The
It
most
happens.
interesting person I've ever met was like the top tier, I don't want to like bitch of a human trafficker. They know that, and they call themselves bottom bitch, and like there's a hierarchy of
Yes,
these
very good.
women
Yes,
that, I mean, there's a hierarchy of these women who, that's just their roles, and they don't feel like they're trafficked, they don't feel like they're exploited, they support their trafficker like he's their man. And
yes.
it's interesting how brainwashed and abused and just these women are. And I mean, it's not just, hey, I'm going to traffic you and going to make you like this meek person. They like try to level them up to feel like they're in somewhat of a control.
There's a chain of command. Like
There's a
in many structures, there's a chain of command, and you stated one of the titles, which is a bottom, which is the
Yeah.
lead girl.
Yeah.
That's somebody who's been around the pimp, trafficker, whatever you want to call
They
them.
wear it with pride. They wear that title.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
mean, so
Yep.
it's insane. Like, I mean, it's sad. Like they really think they're a part of this ranking system, and they're like up there because that's what the trafficker needs to control everybody underneath them.
That's
Now,
right.
I will tell you.
Go
I will
ahead.
tell you on the law enforcement side, these are very hard cases to convict. I know that we had a case many years ago where a young woman was being trafficked, and she basically was being held hostage by drug addiction.
Yep.
And we as a county, we got the conviction, but it was like unheard of the way that unfolded. It was just kind of hard to believe that this goes on. Because you're right, Troy. You hear this and you refer to my favorite movie of all time, Taken. Because I tell my girl, my daughter, look, don't make Dad turn into the Taken guy where I have to go bust everybody up. Don't make Dad do that. So when people do talk about human trafficking, that's one thing they use, but it is, you can be held hostage by many things. You can be held hostage by drugs. You can be held hostage by what one of y'all said about love. They think they love their captor. Um,
But we also
Yes.
need to recognize that human trafficking is not just in a sex trade.
right.
Human
Correct.
trafficking is on so many different levels. It's work related. It's not just a sex trade, and I think
Right.
a lot of people automatically go to that, but
Yep.
that's not the case.
Yeah, you got indebted servitude, labor trafficking.
Right.
So human trafficking will fall into one of three categories. It's either brought upon a survivor by force, fraud, or coercion. And there are so many things that can coerce somebody into being a victim, and that's the whole point of the ranch.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a lady or a man. I keep saying lady. I need to be careful because happens to boys, happens to men
Right.
all the time.
Yeah.
It's the vulnerabilities in their life that leads them there. Maybe they're hungry and they need the place to get food all the time, which is one of the things that we're doing out here. And some people will roll their eyes when we kind of tell them what we're doing because it sounds very hippy dippy and we're out here singing kumbaya and hugging trees. And while that may happen from time to time, there is a rhyme and reason to what we're doing out here. And my wife's spending an hour a day with these ladies and their hands in soil, learning how to grow vegetables and fruit and food. It's not going to solve all the problems, but we got to start somewhere. And
Yeah.
and you got to take it bite by bite, because if you jump into this head first and try to swallow this whole to what hashtags make me laugh, right? So hashtag end human trafficking, which accomplishes a net zero. Um, if you try to do that as a whole, it'll overwhelm you. It's such a dark, overwhelming thing that you have to start with, I'm going to take a nibble off this little corner right here, and that corner is, how do I grow spinach in dirt in
Yeah.
Alabama?
Yeah.
There you
and
go.
and that's where to kind of where we start, and then we just kind of Pac-Man chomping it at as much as we can.
Absolutely. Another thing about, you said vulnerabilities and like the human trafficking thing is like the guys are going to take things away from you that you need to move forward in life. They're going to take your passport. They're going to take your ID. They're going to
Very
take all
good.
the things that you need to get a car, get a license, get anything that you need. These are men that are going to take those things from you, women too. But they want to make you as vulnerable as possible so
I want
that
to
you need them.
it's wonderful you brought that up. I'll share this. And if you hear me pause, it's just because I'm trying to make sure I don't say something I shouldn't.
Right.
We have a young lady coming to the ranch here in a couple of weeks, currently going through detox, because we're not counselors, we're not medical professionals. I mean,
Right.
I was a corpsman, but I didn't detox my Marines.
Right.
And that exact scenario is what is playing out right now, where we're having to go to the courts and go and try to get documents found and sent to us, birth certificates, social security card, passport. Yeah, because they were taken and they're just gone.
Gone.
And it's absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Troy, I know you don't have a whole lot of time. I think you said you had to leave around 9:30. So I feel like we may have to call this episode or part one.
Part one.
Because
Yeah. Part one.
there's like lots more.
Agree.
Yeah, I'm
but-
I told you I was going to ramble, y'all. I
No, it's
apologize.
okay. The story is amazing, and you're doing great work. And I think what a cool thing to do is find such an important thing to do and find a missing piece and say, that's what I'm doing, and that's what I'm dedicating my life to. Because you're not just, this isn't just a safe home that, or a safe place to stay the night or whatever. You're building self-esteem, self-respect,
a life for these women.
Yeah. Who or men, men or women, right, Beck?
Yes.
But it's, you're building something that I think oftentimes is forgotten, especially in a country like ours where mental health and things of that nature aren't, as important as probably it should be,
Agreed.
So, there, kudos to you, man. That's what a cool, and we'll definitely post this in the YouTube chat or a link where people can check out the website. But one quick thing, and I know, again, if we don't have time to answer it, don't. I'm in Ohio. The boss is in Ohio. TJ is in Virginia. What can we do? What could just like your average person do to not only help you in Alabama, which of course you cover the nation, but what can we do in Ohio? Are there ways to get involved?
Good question. And I'm going to give you two things. The first thing is this one will take a little bit of proactive effort, but we're not like the only organization that does what we do. And typically they're peppered throughout the entire United States. I would look and see if there is someone that does this aspect. And number one, you may need to figure out for yourself, if you want to get involved with this, what piece do I want to be involved with? Do I want to be 2011 Troy giving awareness trainings? Do I want to do search and rescue? Do I want to be an advocate that works at a safe house and goes and visits the survivors and helps them try to get their life back in order? Do you want to work for Guardian Ad Litem, which if you don't know who they are, you should probably check them out. That would be number one. But the other thing you can do that kind of ties your question to me is you can request for
Oh.
No, you froze, Troy.
We'll get him back. We'll get him back. He'll come back. I know that sometimes being out in the country, he will lose. I've watched some of his lives, and he'll be on his cycle, on his bicycle.
Oh yeah, and
there he is.
Oh, all right, he's back. All right,
sorry about that.
Sorry.
That's
okay.
So you can request us to come to your city and do a big search. So if you go to freeinternational.org, which is kind of the umbrella group that covers all of our nonprofits, so freeinternational.org, and you can send a request for us to come to your city. We'll build a rapport with the law enforcement, and then the community can come get involved, do the community canvassing portion of the week long that we're there. So yeah, those are the two things I would give you, my friend.
Okay.
Can you say that one more time? Because unfortunately, I was ticking your website up as you were saying that. So where can we go?
freeinternational.org.
Okay. I'll toss that up here too.
Cool.
Just so people could see that. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, Troy, I'm telling you, it's been a true honor. We have been excited. I know we didn't talk much, but I'm in law enforcement, and Becky works as a victim witness advocate.
Oh, I didn't know that. I wish I would have known that before. I was like, man, you're really knowledgeable.
I know a lot. Yeah. I'm a victim advocate for my local prosecutor's office. So
very cool. Very cool.
And Bobby and I love that Bobby asked a lot of questions, because Bobby is a dad of 3 kids.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know some of this stuff is really concerning to him. He wants to keep his children safe, and we appreciate everything that you do.
Yes.
It's a very noble thing to do. And I like how you say it's not about you, it's about them. And I love that.
Yeah.
And I'm just, thank you so much for coming to share your story with us. Thank you for raising awareness, because a lot of people are ignorant to this, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Everyone lives in their little world, and they don't think about
nothing's going to hurt me.
Right.
I thought the same thing, and then it did.
Yeah.
Well, again, part 1, because we want you back.
Yes. If you're down with that, we'll have you back on the show as soon as we can.
Okay.
Yes.
That sounds good. We can arrange that.
Yeah. Troy, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us tonight and sharing your story. Have a wonderful night, and give your family the best for us, please.
Yes.
Will do. Appreciate y'all. You have a good night.
Good night
Thank
now.
you,
Thanks, Troy.
All right, stay on here, guys.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. You see the website that Bobby has put on there. Please go to that. Please show some support. If you can help, if you can do some of the things that Troy does, do it. This is a big deal. This can save a child. It can save an adult. We have to do our part. So thank you for watching the show tonight. And I know a lot of people will watch this later, and we appreciate you. And have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.